Hello everyone, and welcome to Old Guy Paintball. My name is Craig and I am the host. Today is episode 2 of our continuing series we're doing on how to improve the NXL in Major League Paintball. Last week I covered the overall size and some of the issues with that, and this week I'm going to discuss some of the issues on the financial aspects of the NXL that I think are hurting it, and mostly that in the area of sponsorships. One of the issues that really affects the ability of calling yourself a pro league is that players earn a living in what they do. And unfortunately, let's face it, almost the majority of pro paintballers are like you and me. They have real jobs, and the sponsorships really just help pay or defray the costs of playing professional paintball. And this includes everything from travel to the equipment and outfitting of the team, and paying for practices and the tournament entry fees and such like that. And very, very few actually make a living off paintball that they don't have to actually have a real job like the rest of us. And that is one of the problems with, I think, using the term Major League Paintball is paintball really isn't a major league sport when you're paying for most of it yourself in a sense. And the issues with that I have is, just like you and me, if we wanted to play paintball or a tournament, we're either going to take time off of work, away from family, and to do that, we have to pay for vacations with, time like that, use our vacation time to cover that stuff. Or if you have a business, you have to take time away from that business running it to attend these events. And I think that's one of the things that's really hindering the growth of paintball to taking it to the next level. And one of the biggest things is in the past few years, they have had, I believe, South Electronics and Hertz as co-sponsors of, in a sense. And a few years ago, I think they had Rain energy drinks. But overall, paintball is supported by the paintball brands. Now, this has gotten a little more difficult since Vulcan and Ninja at this point appear to have gone belly up, and they provided some of that money. Now it's not there, and it basically survives on its own. And I think that is a very big problem. The sport is never going to grow trying to support itself. There's a lot of, everything from regional tournaments to different leagues that the money can be spread only so much in so many areas. And I really think the NXL needs to start to seek outside of paintball sponsorship. And I have talked about this in the past episodes and on issues that I think that's something they really need to address. And I know there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's beverage companies and, maybe something else that could be attracted to the NXL. And I know one of the first things people say, well, we can have adult beverage companies because kids play the sport. Well, guess what? Every sport out there that has a kid sport involved attached to a adult sport probably has adult beverage sponsors. I mean, whether you look at soccer, baseball, football, basketball, whatever, there's always going to be something who has an adult beverage tied to it. And I'm not saying that that's the answer, but that is one thing they should consider. There's soft drink companies, and also there's other energy drinks and things like that they could probably explore. And I think there's other activities that might interest companies to become a player in the paintball business as a sponsor. The downside for that, unfortunately, is paintball is not a very big sport, and the market share really may not be there. When you go to the events or you see them on TV, there's not a great amount of attendance. And even when I've watched it on the feeds, it's only been a couple thousand maybe at one time. So that's not always the most attractive to get sponsors to come in and take part in something where they don't feel they're getting a exposure value for their dollar. But getting outside sponsors could also help in the sense that more sponsorship means more money, which means you could have better events, maybe at more prominent locations. You can also reinvest this money into your feeds. And I know, like right now, that you pay for a lot of these services, but if you had free services with sponsorship, you can attract a larger market share for these events. And also, that also means that you may have to increase, with more money, the amount of events you have. It's hard to convince sponsors when you only have 5 events a year roughly, and that may not be the most attractive thing to them. But I still think we need to explore that in the realm of paintball. And like I've said, there's various different places you can do it. We could start out small and slowly expand and try to draw more people into it. But unless we can find a way to get the financial ends up in paintball, I really think in a couple of years it could collapse again. Because, the bottom line is everything's getting more expensive. And at some point, we've seen it already in the past where a team gets promoted from semi-pro or buys a pro spot. A year or two later, they're selling it because they realize the cost is just too much to bear. I mean, I don't know exactly how much it is, but I can pretty much say it's probably at least $100,000 to run a professional paintball team. The time you pay for, like I've said before, all the equipment, the soft goods, the time to practice, the rentals, the paint, everything, it's not cheap. And if teams can't make a go of it, then eventually it's going to be like a revolving door where you're just going to keep bringing in new teams every year. Top teams, yes, they get good sponsorships, but, like everything else, people sponsor winning teams and winning organizations. But that doesn't mean at the expense of others. And I'm going to cover this in probably a little more in detail what some other ideas could be in the next episode or going forth. But the NXL is getting close to a crossroads that if they can't think about getting outside sponsorship and expanding the financial inflow of money, it's never going to go nowhere. And it'll always be considered a minor level sport. And that's really not good for any of us because, a lot of us, have dreams if you're younger, maybe make it to the pro division and, being one of those best players in the country and, even in the international competitions, representing your country as a member of your, team. But, that is all with a very big cost. So, it's something that I don't know why they haven't really looked into that. Maybe they have, and they just hasn't been a response because of some of the things I've said about the sizing and with the amount of events that it's just not intriguing to some companies. But I think they really need to get more aggressive in looking for outside money to come into paintball to try to boost it to the next level. And if we don't, I just don't know how long they can continue to go like it is. Now, there's also other things it could do. Is when I've talked about before the standalone events, by having more stands and more public exposure, one, that's a way to help increase more money into the things. And second of all, it shows sponsors that there is going to be a viable audience for them to reach. So we have to get more viewership in both the streaming and live events, and that's going to be a combination doing several of the things that I've already pointed out. But with that, paintball has to start thinking outside the box anymore because, it's just a struggle right now to grow a sport when you don't have what you really need. And I'm interested to know what you think. Do you think paintball should look at outside sponsors and consider going to what maybe people may not want to do and go to certain, kind of sponsors? Or do you think we should just keep it going like the way it is and roll the dice and hope it works? With that, put your comments down below if you have an idea. And next week, I will be dropping probably a third episode of what I want to talk about is some of the other minor aspects of the game that could be tweaked. And maybe I'll probably, if I don't do it in that one, I'll do a fourth episode of wrapping all this up. But once again, I want to thank everybody for all your support and all your comments. They mean a lot to me and they help the channel a lot. And if you missed last week's episode, go back and check out episode 1. And then make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next upcoming episodes of how to fix the NXL. And with that, once again, thank you. And I look forward to seeing all of you on the paintball field soon.